Talking Heads podcast live from Pattaya, Thailand with your host, Dave D. Join us weekdays. Check out all the latest updates on talkingheads-podcast.com.
And welcome to Pattaya and welcome to Thailand again. And of course, it's hot outside. It's even hotter in the studio, as they say, for part 2 of that little bus running down that road. In the studio again, Matthew Kelly. Welcome to the studio again, sir. How are you?
Very well. Thank you for having me back again.
Well, they paid us well.
Okay.
It's nice to have you back in here, sir.
That's a pleasure.
Looking as fresh as ever.
Yeah, I had a nice swim today and a beautiful day today, sunny. The rain seems to have passed for now, so it's been great.
Going to be a good one. Okay, we're going to take you down a little bit of a road today. We've got some bullet points. We're going to take you down a nice road. We're going to take it nice and easy.
Before we start, I'd like to make a quick comment. I just wanted to, I'd like to, first and foremost, I'd like to extend a blessing and to acknowledge all of the people out in California who have been having to endure all the such severe smoke and fires all over the state of California. It's been devastating, engulfing, so much of the state. And, we all have a lot of personal friends out there. And so my heart goes out to them.
Our hearts go out to them, of course.
Everybody. And also, in that same vein, I'd like to also say something about Pattaya because so many of the small businesses are hurting as well. And as you know, they're going under. So that's, I just wanted to mention that before we get started about my stuff.
It's nice. We should have done that. You should have slapped me on the wrist and said, what about this? I've seen it in California and it just looks like a movie again. And I mean, what's happening in the world at the moment with COVID and then that on top as well. It's just so devastating.
It is. It's amazing. We're very, very fortunate. I said this last time. We're so fortunate to be here in Thailand at the moment, So anyway, so you can shoot ahead.
Good. Thank you. Said all our thoughts in the studio. Bobby at the end on mission control is down there today. Welcome, Bobby.
Hey, Matthew. Hey, David. How you doing?
How you doing, guys? So we're bringing Bobby in as well today, so we can all have a bit of a group conversation. And if I say anything wrong or go out of hand, Bobby's got that big red button. It goes in my
yeah, he can reel you in.
Now let's all right. Thanks for that. Okay, we do appreciate it. And like I said, all our thoughts go out to everybody over there, and I'm sure you've got friends there. So hopefully. They stay safe, yes?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, on the road. I mean, I'm going to say this right, and Bobby's going to correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not as how do you say, influential as him. He's in mission control, so he's the man at the end there. Mortimer, the end of the war in Vietnam, 1969. He's sort of given me a couple of bullet points, and hopefully that'll jog a few memories to you.
Yeah, it certainly does. Because this sort of leads up, I'm going to talk about the Chitlin Circuit, but before I deal with that, I want to briefly touch on a few things that happened prior to that is of great interest, because with my old pal Tim Hovey, the ex-child movie star who I mentioned last time, Tim and I and some other people, we headed down to Veracruz, Mexico, and tried to get a freighter, and I'll make this quick. Couldn't get a freighter out of there. We got on board, but it was a Russian freighter, and the American government said no. So we headed up to New York, and this is where it gets interesting. I don't know how many of you remember Barry Goldwater. He was a senator, and maybe he was a congressman. I don't know but anyway, he was very influential. He also ran for president, and I was in New York, and I was crashing on Barry Goldwater's niece's floor in New York City. And so while I was there, because of all my rugby accidents and stuff, I had just an excruciating headache. And she said, well, listen, I know this doctor I can take you to. And so, make a long story short, she took me to this doctor who Bobby and I just looked up on Google today, and he's quite famous, or I should say infamous, because he turns out he worked in Germany. He was one of the original founders of drugs like amphetamine and stuff. Anyway, he was Kennedy's personal physician. His nickname was Dr. Feelgood. You can look him up. And his
Mrs. Max Jacobson, is that right?
Yeah. And all I remember was I was young and very naive. I don't know how old I was at the time. Maybe I was 21 exactly. And so Barry Goldwater's niece took me in there, and so I walked into his office, and he took me in the back room, and he said, "Oh, I have something. It's going to make you feel better than any." I can't remember his exact words, but anyway, to cut to the chase, he gave me a shot, and I have no idea what it was, but it was.
I like that. Yeah, he gave me a shot. I don't know what it was, but he gave me a shot.
It was the same kind of stuff that he was giving to John F. Kennedy. It turns out,
wow.
And Jacqueline, eventually had him fired. But anyway, gave me the shot, and and it cured my headache. And whilst I was under the influence of the shot, and because it cured my headache, we hopped on an airplane, flew to Washington D.C., where it was in 1969. They were having one of the biggest marches to counter the Vietnam War, and so because I was Barry Goldwater's niece, he was in Arizona, and so. We went to his flat, and we crashed on the floor of his place in
Georgetown.
It was Georgetown. Yep. And we borrowed his T-Bird that had U.S. Congress plates on it, and we jumped in, and it allowed us to get through all the road barriers, and we got front row parking.
So is it like diplomatic plates? And I would imagine.
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so Tim and I, just the two of us, we were right there, and it was really brutal because you can see the footage of it if you go online. But they were macing and clubbing people.
Yeah, I see them. I can remember that.
And somewhere we have pictures of that. I don't have them at the moment, but anyway, so that was a fascinating experience because I don't know at what point Kent State, where they shot all the students. I don't know when that took place. It was right around that same time. But anyway, I want to. I've got so much to talk about, so I'm going to jump ahead. So
I like the Dr. Feelgood. I think that name is really, really cool. We're going to jump ahead. I want to take you over to Tim Hovey and Matthew Hopper, a firefighter freighter to London. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what we're doing next.
What we're saying, this is the Ashi trial. Is that right?
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you. Good.
Go on, bring it in, Bobby. Bring him in.
You guys wanted to do a movie, didn't you?
Well, yeah, that was our original intention because Tim, having been, the number one child star in Hollywood, he had connections. So we had camera equipment, we had some people backing us, and Tim had already been all over Southeast Asia, so he knew the ropes. And so we had written a script called the Hashish Trail. It was about how they make hashish and all that kind of thing. But we had a whole plot. It was but I don't want to get too much into that. But it was a great idea, and we were very excited about it.
Was this sort of was this a film, or was this like a fly on the wall documentary about?
Well,
like they did the Silk Road thing. Yeah, are we going down the same trail?
It was partially documentary because it was going to deal with how they. It's very sophisticated how they make the government stamped and approve these big bars of hashish, and so
you can imagine that going through the
house. So here we are. We had it all planned out, but when we took the freighter across, we were one of the last boats to get from Montreal up the St. Lawrence Seaway because it was getting all iced up. And so we had a real adventure crossing the Atlantic. And we got to London. Let's see. We met up with an old friend of mine, this gentleman named Todd Moorhead, who, as it turned out, he built his own boat in Norway and actually sailed around the world in this boat. But anyway, and Todd said, look, I've got these guys from Evansville, Indiana, and they've got a record deal with this guy, Tony Barrow, who was one of the Beatles' first managers, I think, in the early days. And so, anyway, so I jammed with these guys, and it was just 3 guys, and they invited me to join the band. I don't know if I talked about this a little bit last time.
Is this where we're going on to like the gospel band? Is it the gospel oak band? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
that right?
pre-Gospel Oak. Yeah,
This is pre-gospel oak, is it?
Well, it's just what led up to Gospel Oak, and then I joined Gospel Oak, and that's when we were signed with MCA Records. That's the same company that Elton John was on, and I met Elton briefly in the office before he had a record out, and so we were. To be honest, the band wasn't that good, but the main songwriter, this guy John Rapp, was a genius. He was like a Bob Dylan. His lyrics were amazing. But in any case, so we're staying up in Hampstead Heath at a
Nice place.
nice place.
Nice place.
And we're all, I mean, if you can imagine, Hampstead Heath is a pretty exclusive area. And here we're a rock band, playing all hours of the day and night.
That's sort of like that's like the megaphone out the window, isn't it? Saying, "Sorry guys, but we're just here at the moment." So
it's amazing. We didn't get any major complaints. But anyway, and like some of the guys from Led Zeppelin, mostly the crew would stop by, and people like Richie Havens and those kind of folks. And
I mean, it was pretty hip at that time, though, wasn't it? I mean, it was really down in Amsterdam. I mean, everybody used to go down to the Savile Roads and places like that, and get all the stuff from down there. So I mean, rock bands over there in Amsterdam at that time, surely. I mean, it must have been great. The atmosphere must have been brilliant compared to now.
It was because it was basically so open.
TV's out the window? No.
No. Well, that's another story. But I never got into that. But that did happen on the road. But that's another story. But in any case, one of the things that I really think bears mentioning is that whilst I was staying with the Webb family, much to my surprise, they had part ownership in maybe you've heard of Aleister Crowley. Mm-hmm. He was really he was a.
We're on about sort of we're going into the Aleister Crowley's house now, aren't we? We're going to get there, aren't we? That's where we're going.
That's where we're going with this because I'd heard little bits of Aleister Crowley. I knew he was a brilliant man, and the Theosophical Society was trying to bring him over, but he kind of veered to the dark side and went into black magic and stuff. And but anyway, we ended up in his house, which turned out the Webb family that we were staying with in Highgate, they had part ownership to the house. And as you probably know, Led Zeppelin, they were all into all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So here we were in Aleister Crowley's house, and where he was practicing all this nefarious kind of dark stuff, and it was really amazing. So anyway, so that was that.
Can I just ask you something?
Sure.
I mean, we've done the first show, we've had a talk together, and it's great. And then we're doing a bit more in depth today. But do you ever sit down and sort of, or put it on a wall and do a map of where you came from and where you are now, and how sometimes along the way, being in the place at the right time, or meeting the right person, or putting the dots together? Do you ever look at that on your trip? Because I've spoken to artists over the years, and they just say, like you're saying now, I went from here and we got on there and we did this and we went to there, and it's like this map. It's like this journey, I mean, we spoke.
We're chronicling it right now.
Yeah, we spoke. I mean, you'll probably put me on. I'm going to say this right, and Bobby at the end is going to put me right on this. Neil Cassidy, yeah. Who you know, and we can talk about it a little bit later on. But this guy was on a trip of his own, yeah. But it's amazing how all the dots seem to go together, right? And I mean, listening to you now, we was there, we did this, we did that. It seems as though you're guided in a way, yes? Would you agree with that? Or is it just split decisions?
Well, I think it's a combination of being in the right place at the right time, and the people you meet, and there's, I think it's like the law of attraction. You attract whatever kind of frame of mind you're in. You're sort of attracted to that scene at the time. And so anyway, we met all these fascinating people. But let's see.
I mean, you got the letter to Dave Torbert as well that you did. Yeah.
Yeah. David Torbert. We had played in these bands in the Southern Bay Area while the Grateful Dead were playing in San Francisco, and we had a following. But when we broke up, David went to Hawaii, and so because the musicianship was not that great in Gospel Oak, but the songwriting was strong. Excuse me.
Okay.
I sent Torbert a letter, and I said, "Look, we would love to have you here," and we sent him the money to come, and he flew to San Francisco, stayed at his parents' house for one night, got a phone call from David Nelson from the New Riders of Purple Satan, who told him, "Look, I'm playing a band with Jerry Garcia, and we need you." So Torbert wrote me this letter, which I think I might have found somewhere. My wife may have found it. I'll find it. It'd be priceless.
So what about, I was on the road DJing, which is completely different. But you being on the road and doing all the things that you've done, I mean, like you said, the letter and things like that. Did you ever go through boxes or attics or anything like that and sort of pick something up and go, "Oh, I remember that"? I mean, surely that happens.
Yeah, but when you're traveling around a lot, I've been in so many different places. Things get lost along the way, and
sure.
So, but it's amazing how much stuff I have managed to retain.
Mary recently found a lot of those letters.
Yeah, she did.
Hi, Mary.
Yeah,
hi, Mary. Hi, Mary.
We want you to come back to Thailand soon, Mary. Come back.
We're working on it.
Stay there for a second. We're going to return to the USA and the Chiltern, all right? So let me break you into that
Talking
one,
Heads podcast.
Okay, returning to USA and Chiltern. Let's get there and fill me in on sort of what's happening around that period.
You mean Chitlin?
Chitlin, sorry, yes.
Chitlin,
you see, Bobby, you should tell me this. Yeah, I told you should keep the.
Well, Brits and Americans, we talk differently, so
here we go.
Don't worry, man.
I speak with a spoon in my mouth.
We love you, man.
You should have the chicken. You should throw it at me when I get it wrong.
That's okay.
Say it. You say it. What is it?
Chitlin.
Chitlin. There we go.
And why don't you, Matthew? Why don't you tell David what a chitlin is?
Yeah. What is?
Well, to be honest, I don't think I ever, even though I was playing with these guys and on the Chitlin Circuit, I don't know if I ever ate chitlins.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a food.
I just found out recently.
It's a
food.
It's a food that
the African Americans used to eat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
and it was made I believe from pork intestine.
Hey.
Yeah, it was.
Whoa, hang on! He's been eating this all his life, and now you've just put him off it.
No, I never. I've been a vegetarian for 50 years.
50 years, yeah. 50 years.
So some of the African Americans in those times were going through some tough times, and that's really all they could eat back then.
Yeah.
So how when the chitlin? Yeah, is that right?
Chitlin.
So how does that come together with the music side of it?
I'm getting around to that. So after Gospel Oak, finally, after about 8 or 9 months. Long, cold winter in London, as you know, can be pretty dreary. But
miserable is the word you're looking for.
Yeah, but it was a nice time in a lot of ways. But when spring hit in Hampstead Heath, it was just miraculous. It was like, but anyway, the guys, the rest of the guys flew back to Indiana, and I met Champion Jack Dupree, who was a well-known guy from New Orleans. They called him Champion Jack because he was a prize fighter before that. And he was like, he was really well known because he had this, we traveled around in his Champion Jack mobile, which was like all decorated Mardi Gras style.
Wow. I've got it, the Mardi Gras. I like that one. I like that.
Yeah. And so we went to, all the major little towns in London. It was just myself and Jack, just the two of us. And we pick up bass players and drummers along the way. And that was an amazing adventure. And so...
And what was that? Was that for studio sessions? Was
no.
Just for jamming or playing or what?
Unfortunately, I never recorded with them. But we did, lots of live gigs. And one of the things that made it really interesting for me was Champion Jack wasn't just a piano player singer. He was an incredible comedian. So he'd tell jokes, like Red Fox type of, if you know Red Fox, kind of bawdy kind of jokes that were just hilarious. So he'd have the whole audience in stitches, and he'd play a few little notes and then make a joke. And
when you say you played the live gigs with him, is this just outdoors, indoors? Where is this? Was it?
I don't think I did any outdoor gigs with him. It was all small clubs.
Small clubs, okay.
All over England, and it was a great way to see the countryside around England at that time, because it was during the summer.
So Evansville, Indiana, is basically where the Chitlin Circuit started, yeah?
Well, yeah. Well, let me back up. So I flew back after the thing. I had to leave playing with Champion Jack because I couldn't get a work permit, because he was going to play in Europe with all.
Did that exist then? Back in then, did you need work permits then?
What's that?
Did you need work permits in the UK then for what he was doing?
I got away with it in the UK, but he was going to Europe, where Otis Spann and all the greats, all these great players were playing.
So then you need it. Yeah.
And I was so devastated because I needed a work permit for that, so I couldn't get it. So that's when I decided to fly back to the States, and that's when I ended up playing with or meeting Patty Cathcart, who's now in Tuck and Patty fame, and we had a band called 33, and with the Doobie Brothers drummer, and we had other drummers too. But anyway, in that we were the band that backed up T-Bone Walker, and from there, I'm just going to quickly run over the sequence of events. I don't know if I mentioned, I had one of the first natural food restaurants in the Bay Area called the New Moon Restaurant, and it was overnight success. But whilst I was there, I got a phone call from my friends from Gospel Oak, and they said, "Look, you should come out to Evansville." And so I packed up. I left the restaurant, and myself and this black guy named Johnny Carswell, who was a big influence on me, and we drove back in my Volkswagen with this
van or car?
Huh?
Van or car?
It was a van because we couldn't fit everything.
Split screen?
I don't know. What?
Split screen? Split screen?
I can't remember.
They're so sought after now, aren't they? They're like, psychedelic pieces of art now, aren't they, Bobby? And they're very popular in Thailand.
Oh, yeah.
They're very popular in Thailand because they basically love them. And also
the VW bands?
They turn them into the bars and everything, don't they?
Yeah.
And there's a guy just down here, actually, down the road. That's all he does. Cars and vans, Volkswagen.
I'd love to have one again today because they're so reliable, you know.
6 bolts to take the engine out or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something so
simple.
I had a Beetle and it was like 6 or 8 bolts or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Easy. Change the engine on the road.
No. So
sorry, I was jumping in there,
okay.
but I like it.
So anyway, we drove out to Evansville, and it turned out there was very little work, and so myself and Johnny,
Johnny Carswell.
Johnny Carswell, yeah, thank you. We'd gotten really close, and so we were playing all these different clubs, and we weren't in the Deep South yet, but I didn't realize how, in California, I never experienced the racial issues as much as when we got into Evansville, it was getting pretty dicey, and we played in this one club.
And the racial side of it?
Huh?
The racial side of it then, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And we played in this one club, and the owner was gone for a few days, and he came back, and he saw me with Johnny, and he said, "Hey, boy, we don't allow niggers in our club." And I said, "What do you mean? But we've been filling up your club with people." And he said, "I don't care." And he came over and sprayed me point blank with a can of mace in my eyes. Yeah, and actually, Johnny ended up saving my life because I went berserk, and I wanted to just get this guy, and he had a .38 pointed at my head.
Ow.
And so that's what happened. And Johnny rushed me to the hospital, and
with the mace.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's ever experienced that, but
I've seen videos and its effects. Yes,
when you get it point blank, it's devastating.
I mean, why? I mean, just winding that a little bit back, Matt. I mean, why would he? If you got your friend there who's a black guy, he's brilliant at what he does, and you two are filling the club, why would he do that?
I can say it in
the South was real, and I mean it still is, man. There's pockets of the South it's completely racist, you know.
Well, this guy was Ku Klux Klan, as it turned out.
Oh,
and shortly thereafter, in the same place, I was taken aside and had a gun put in my head. Said, you know, in this part of the world, you know, you should be playing with the white boys down like you don't. Otherwise,
I never get it. I've never got it in the whole of my life. I just don't. It just doesn't register with me. I just can't get it. You know, I'm not. You know, I don't sort of get involved in it. But to me, meeting the people on the way and the road, like you've met tons more than I have. But I never see it. I just can't see it. You know, if somebody's good at something and talented, that's it. I don't give a shit what colour they are.
You know, it didn't make any sense.
It don't make sense.
But David, the thing that really didn't make sense is that we were filling up his club with people.
Yes.
So he didn't care because he just didn't, you know, he was so prejudiced. But anyway, so finally we got this gig. This is one of all my experiences in the Chitlin Circuit. We went to a place in the middle of winter in a small coal mining town in Kentucky, and it was out in the boondocks and in the hills. It was the middle of winter. I was freezing cold. The heat went off on my Volkswagen, so I was freezing when I got in the club. They had a big coal burning stove in the middle. I got in there, warmed up, and it was like something out of a 1930 movie or something. Anyway, there we're playing, and the owner was this big black guy with 245 automatics. He took me in the back room and said, I love your harp playing. I love the sound of harp. And so here's $20. Just play the harp by yourself. So anyway, that was, God, I would have given anything to have had just a picture of that place, because it's like they don't exist. As far as I know, they don't. Those kind of places don't exist.
But you were saying, to get me from right, I mean, at one time you were the only white guy within this community, weren't you?
Yeah.
And this is what you're talking about now.
Yep.
So in this club, it was completely black people.
Yeah.
And you was the only white person in there.
The only one. But they treated me so well. The owner took me back and said, "Listen, if you like any of our black women, you know, don't feel free." And it was just they basically embraced me. Made me feel really at home.
Which I totally am agreement with and understand, and I'm all for. So when it goes the opposite way, it just does not register with me. How people can be like that especially against somebody who's an artist, somebody that's producing something that fills a place of their business. I just don't get it. So for that guy to turn around to you and say, "Hey, you know, you're doing a great job. I love what you're doing. You play the harp really cool. You're a cool guy. Welcome to the community." I love that.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
And like you say, you wish that you had some pictures from it.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was, it was shortly after that things started getting so heated up with all the prejudice, that I was constantly down at the NAACP, which, you know that organization?
No.
Well, it's an organization to help protect the rights of black people, and so. And
you were part of this, yes?
Well, I wasn't a member per se, but I was constantly down there trying to get things sorted out, and then finally Johnny and we said, "Look, this is getting too dangerous." So we hugged and we went our separate ways.
Isn't that sad?
But I'm just kidding. Yeah. It was extremely sad, you know, because we were really close. But shortly thereafter, I hopped in my Volkswagen with my girlfriend at the time. We drove to, our next stop was Nashville, where I tried to get work as a studio harp player. And that didn't work out. I met this guy, Charlie McCoy, who was the most famous country harp player in Nashville. And so he took me under his wing for a while, and that was fun. But
I mean, that was like we're getting into you finding some studio session work at that time, yes?
Well, but I couldn't get work because he was pretty possessive about his gig, and he said, you know, there's only one room for one guy. And anyway, my style was completely different.
We got a bit of a style, though. We've got a bit of a play on there, haven't we? We got some.
We do.
Can we do that?
We sure can.
Is that okay? Let's take a little bit of a break, Matt. Yeah.
Sure.
And I believe
this is the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah.
Talking Heads podcast.
Dogs begin to bark now. to bark now, and the hounds begin to howl. Dogs begin to bark now, and the hounds begin to howl. Watch out, stray cat people. You know the little red rooster's on the prowl. Matthew Kelly, Hannah. You see my little red rooster, please drive him home.
Talking Heads podcast live from Pattaya, Thailand with your host Dave D. Join us weekdays. Check out all the latest updates on talkingheads-podcast.com.
Back with us in the studio in Pattaya, Thailand. Welcome back. If you just joined us, Matthew Kelly in the studio and Bobby at the end on Mission Control. As we're going around on tour in the bus, I'm going to take him all the way back to Louisiana, New Orleans, and the 809 Club, Matthew.
Well, here I ended up in New Orleans. I didn't have a penny to my name, and we ended up. My girlfriend at the time had a close friend in New Orleans who was a lawyer, and she said, "Oh, you can crash on our floor." So we crashed on her floor, and my girlfriend, who was very intelligent, she got a job working as a legal secretary for a law firm. But I was looking for work, and the only job I could get was playing guitar at a club on Bourbon Street, which was from 9 o'clock at night till 5 in the morning, 6 nights a week.
Oh,
it's really, really grueling.
Grueling. So 8 hours. We're on 8 hours, yeah.
Yeah.
And what about 45 minutes at a time, or was it longer than that then?
I can't remember.
But it's a long time.
I was young, and so I had stamina. I could play, but it was quite an experience because Fat Domino's club was right next door, so I got to hear that.
Wow.
One of my idols.
You can't make this shit up, folks. Don't go anywhere, all right? We love this. We love it.
So anyway, one of the neat things about it was when I get off work at 5 in the morning, I'd have my guitar and walk down by the Mississippi River back to my little flat in the French Quarter. And I mean, it was like a magical time. I didn't have much money, but who cared? Because I was young and we were it was fun. But it was a mafia club. And one of the
one where you was playing was
809 Club was famous. Like the New Orleans Saints used to hang out in there. And, and they were very, if you talk to any of the hostesses, the bar girls in there, I mean, they weren't bar girls like here, but they were working the bar. And anyway, you would get.
But surely, as you're down there in Louisiana, in New Orleans at that time, as a musician in that club, Fats Domino's next door. Yeah. I mean, you must have been walking down that street with your guitar over your shoulder, listening to all these tunes coming out the windows and out the doors, and thinking, "I'm in heaven."
Unbelievable.
I can imagine it. It must have been brilliant.
It was a dream for me at the time, and so. Finally, what happened was myself and the bass player decided that because it was getting a little bit dangerous working in this mafia club, they started threatening us. So we quit and we went to work on these oil tankers, these freighters. And we were the only white guys on these oil tankers. And we had to...
oil tanker ships you're on about, yes?
Ships.
Okay,
not the
not the rigs.
Not the rigs. But it was such dirty work. You had to wrap yourself in rags, and then at the end of the day, you throw away the rags. But while I was working there,
But what about when you were there and the meeting Bobby Blue Band in?
Well, I'm getting around to that, but
okay,
I got to get to this other part, because what happened? There was this young black kid, and in the boat on these ships they had these big things, I don't know, pipes that you have to crawl in and do work in. But it turns out there was all these toxic fumes.
Ow.
And he passed out, and he would have died in there. So I wrapped my face up and came in and pulled him out. And essentially they said I saved his life. I don't know if that's true, but
I'm sure you did. If it's toxic fumes and he's on the way out and you're pulling him out.
He passed out.
Yeah, well, he's on the way out, and you saved his life, full stop.
So I pulled him out, and we got to be friends. And it turns out he was a really good-looking black kid and super talented. He was a singer. And to make a long story short, he invited me to join this band called the Soul Majestics.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a great name.
It's a great name.
That's a great name. I like that.
And so I ended up playing with those guys. And those were also never once did I see a white face. And
that's amazing, though, isn't it? Don't you think so? That's amazing.
Nowadays,
what an initiation, Matthew, huh?
But how many times have you guys? I mean, we've done it in the past, and you're like listening to somebody singing, yeah. You listen to somebody singing, and you say, that black dude, he's really cool at singing, and it's a white guy. And then you hear somebody like Matt, who's over there playing the harp or whatever, and you go, wow. That black guy can sure play the harp, and you go, no, he's white. So you do get that, don't you?
Well, I got to tell you that. I got to say one thing. I mentioned this to Bobby earlier. The best compliment I think I ever got in my years of playing harp, I was playing a gig with Sly Stone's mother.
Sly Stone and the family, wasn't it?
Yeah. But this wasn't Sly. This was his mother, and she had a little duo in Palo Alto, and I sat in with her and. She's right at the end of the song. She turned around and she said, your heart, when I hear you play, I feel like I'm in church. It was like the best compliment I've ever got, because it was like she was so moved. I don't know. It was a nice. But
they're really,
nice
they're the side of that. Their spiritual music and the way they deal with the music in their bodies, and that it goes through their bodies. It's like vibrations, isn't it? And I mean, so majestic. I mean, hello. Come on, I mean, that's a great way of doing it. But what a compliment, eh?
Yeah, it stuck with me for all these years. And I only did the one show with her. But anyway, so getting to all the stuff with Bobby Blue Band and everything. So finally, I...
in New Orleans, yeah?
And it was still in New Orleans. And they were playing at the Civic Center or someplace like that. And Bobby Blue Band was... first of all, I have to say, Bobby Blue Band, a lot of people don't know who Bobby Blue Band was or is.
I don't know who Bobby Blue Band is. Please tell me.
Bobby Blue Band, he was most famous for a song, Turn On Your Love Light, that song, Love Light. But he was considered to have had the best voice, R&B voice, of any blues singer at that time. And my good friend Mel Brown was his guitarist. And so when I went to this place in New Orleans, I was backstage, and I'd never met him before, but I'd been listening to him since I was 13 years old. And here I was sitting in the dressing room with him, and his band had missed their flight. So he had no band to back him up. And Jackie Wilson, another guy.
Petite Jackie Wilson, yes.
Remember Jackie Wilson?
Yeah.
My heart is lonely teardrops.
Lonely teardrops. Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, you remember that?
Yes, I do.
So
I'm not that bad, Matt.
No, that's good. But he was a headliner, and but because Bobby Blue Band didn't have a band, he was flipping out because his music is not regular 1-4-5 blues. It's very complicated. So here I went backstage with him, and he's got a bottle of bourbon, and he's in his T-shirt, and I'm just talking to him. I just let him, talk, because he was devastated. And so he did the gig and made it through. But that was I was so honored to be able to have a one-on-one.
So him sitting there with no band, I take it that you guys helped him out, yeah?
Well, I didn't, because I wasn't there to play.
Okay, all right.
But having said that, I did have the wonderful experience of playing with this guy, Furry Lewis, who was the oldest living blues guy, I think, left in the world. He was 93 years old, Furry Lewis.
What a name, Bobby. What a name.
Bobby, why don't you tell your story about...
Come on, Bobby, join in. Give me a story.
Well, I'm a big Joni Mitchell fan, and around 1979, she came out with an album called Hey Gira, and listening to the album, there's a song on the album called Furry Sings the Blues, and I would listen to the song over the years, and after meeting Matthew, he was talking about his experience with Furry, and I'm like, is that the same Furry that Joni Mitchell was singing about? Yes, it was.
Wow. Because
she did a road trip through the United States, and ended up in New Orleans and saw Furry play. And Matthew got to hang with Furry and play with Furry. Wow.
Yeah.
That's an honor, surely.
It's such an honor, and the thing about Furry Lewis was, because he usually played solo, there was no format to his music, so you really had to pay attention because you never knew when he was going to change chords, so I really have to listen.
Well, we spoke, if you remember, in the last show we were speaking about Chuck Berry. You remember we said, he used to come on stage and everybody went, right, okay, right, let's do it, and he used to just go off.
Oh, yeah.
He never played. They all knew. They'd all practiced what they were going to do.
Yeah.
And they came on and he went, right, okay, well,
do something different.
He was down another road.
Yeah,
he was off.
He was that was his style. He was not the easiest guy to work with.
No, but you're saying that his style of music was like he sort of went on a jamming tour in his head when he was playing.
Furry?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very simple guitar, and it wasn't even, it was a small, I don't remember what it was, but anyway, that was a wonderful thing. And then, let's see.
And what about playing with Johnny Carswell?
Well, like I said, Johnny and I had split ways after the whole Kentucky
thing. He'd gone and that was it, yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't seen him since then. But we've talked on the phone, and he's played all over Europe.
What happened to Furry Lewis? Did you ever keep in contact with him?
No.
And he was at the time. He was what he's coming.
I was not close with him. The person I was really close with was T-Bone Walker, and
you spoke about that, didn't you? Before you said something about, if I remember rightly, B.B. King saying the guy is T-Bone Walker. Yeah,
he said, "I'm not the real king of the blues. The real king of the blues is."
Well, what a compliment coming from a guy like that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just it's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, if you can go back to let me just wind you back and put you on the spot a little bit. If I take you back to New Orleans, because that sort of intrigues me at that time. I mean, what year was that in New Orleans?
Jeez.
Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
I'm guessing it's around 60. No, wait a minute. 68, 69, 70, somewhere around there. I don't really know.
Right, so somewhere late 60s, beginning of 70s. Surely that was like can I say this, Bobby? It's like a mixing pot of musicians and doing their thing. I mean, surely the atmosphere, the sounds.
That's the heaviest musical place on the planet.
Yeah, sure.
In my opinion, anyway. New
Orleans
Orleans is one of the heaviest musical zones. The epicenter of the blues.
Yeah. And I mean, that's where the Neville Brothers and Dr. John and all those great Zydeco players, Clifton Chenier, all those guys came from.
So if you was to sit here now, and I would ask you a question, like I'm just going to put you on the spot a little bit at the moment. If you had the chance to play with anybody that you didn't play with over the period of your musical career so far, could you single one person out? Would that be fair of me to say that?
That's a great question. Yeah, there was somebody. I've never. Let's see.
Sorry for putting you on the spot.
No.
That's something that interests me.
That's a great question. I've always wanted to. I played with Bonnie Raitt, but I was never. Charlie Musselwhite was on the gig, and I was playing a little backup guitar. But Charlie Musselwhite's a great harp player. But I'd love to do a show where I'm playing harp with Bonnie. And I mean, I've done a lot of stuff with Bonnie, but never playing actually together. But then the other person, let's see.
Interesting.
Also, I would love to have played with Little Feat. And Lowell George invited me to do a record with Little Feat, but he died before that happened.
So them two would stick out. So over the years, I mean, you've met a lot of people. And I mean, so who would you say? So we've gone to we've covered the person that you'd probably like to do a show with. But who would you say, in fairness, and not sort of putting anybody on the shelf, who would you say was your biggest influence?
Oh, I mean, from the time when I first started playing.
From the first time you started.
That's easy.
I like that.
That's easy. Ray Charles.
Yeah.
Ray Charles, hands down. The first concert I ever went to in my life, I was 11 years old. Ray Charles had just gotten out of jail, and he played the Longshoremen's Hall in San Francisco, and I went with my big brother. And yeah, he's had the most influence on me.
I mean, we was talking a little bit off camera, wasn't we, Bobby, about a couple of things. Can I jump in with what we were talking about earlier? Because I think it's pretty cool. We were talking about Jerry Garcia and Bob Weir a little bit earlier on before we came on the show, and I was watching. In fact, I've watched it twice, which is the other one. Yeah, which is the film about the Grateful Dead and Neil Cassidy on the bus and all that lot. And there's a piece on there where they said they were doing these parties and there was the LSD in the room. Okay, they all used to go in and pay $1. Yeah, they could all have a go, and they just partied. Yeah, and it was really, really cool. But the only thing what was missing was music, and that's when Garcia and Weir came on the scene inside of there and started doing their thing. I like how it sort of progressed from there to what it became.
Well, that was part of what they called, quote unquote, the acid test.
Yeah.
And with Ken Kesey, and
Yes.
he was one of the ringleaders of that.
Yes.
And yeah, I didn't go to a lot of those things. I mean, I was in La Honda when Kesey and they had their place up. I did participate in a lot of those things, but basically I was kind of a country boy, and so I wasn't. Those kind of events, I was around there, but I didn't participate that much in that kind of thing.
So what about in that period of time? I mean, how do you go from where you were to becoming sort of like being pulled into the other bands? I mean, what sort of like triggered things? Did people see you or hear about you, or did you just end up knocking on a studio door? I mean, how do you get there?
I mentioned this a little bit in the first conversation. I was playing in a band. And Torbert was in this band called the New Delhi River Band, and I saw him play, and I thought, God, I'd really like to play with that guy. And then they invited me to join their band, and then Torbert was the one that kind of, because I didn't have a lot of faith in myself, and he...
Yeah, we said about this.
Yeah, so he helped me, develop confidence and kept saying, come on, Kelly, you really got what it takes. And so, one thing led to another, and finally we started Kingfish.
Your harp playing is brilliant, but I mean, was there at the time, was there many people doing that? Playing harmony, was there many people do that? Because you see, you got the guys that play the bass, the guitars, the rhythms, the drums, and all that. But I've never sort of noticed that there's many people around playing the harmonica. Could I say that?
Well, I think it's
there's people who play harp, and there's people who play excellent harp, and Matthew really stands alone in that department.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say there's some good harp players out there, but
Norton Buffalo,
who's no longer with us. But one of the things that I think I do well is I've got, and a lot of people tell me this who I respect. They said the tone is one of the things I do the best. But there's other guys that can do faster licks, and like the guy in that forget his name, the big guy. You know what I'm talking about, Bobby? They had that
Toots, not Toots.
No.
Chromatic.
Yeah, they're like a hippie band, a big guy, heavy set guy, and they do Grateful Dead kind of stuff.
Really, I don't.
We've done shows with him. You would know. Anyway, I can't think of his name, but he plays a lot of notes, and we've done shows with him. You'd know who I'm thinking of. But there are not a lot of people.
Yeah,
that's
what my question was.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of people that play the harmonica? And where you say there's people that play, and of course there's people that play it really good. So I mean, it's just something I was trying to find out when it came to like playing studio sessions or doing things like that. Is there an array of people that do this?
Yeah, there's not a lot.
Okay.
And there's some that I hear on movie soundtracks and everything. There's some harp stuff, but none of it really stands out.
Did you like Mark Ford's playing? Mark
Yeah,
Ford,
yeah, he's good.
Robin's brother.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
really
he's
good.
really good. There's some, yeah, he's really good. But one of the interesting things about harp, for me, is that just because it's so portable, I carry it around, and I've had experiences all over the world where it's. At one time, it actually saved me a couple of times. Just,
Can I ask a question? I went to see you was playing the other day, and you had different harps on the table. Yeah. What are they for? Because to a person that doesn't understand that, I mean, my little lad's got a harp and he plays it, and then, hey, Daddy, I'm all right. But then I see you with the different ones on the. What are they? Could you explain that to me?
yeah, they're all different keys because, like the other day, like yesterday, I played with this jazz band, and they play in weird keys like F sharp and B flat and stuff like that, and most rock bands and blues just play in normal keys. So I have to have all the sharps and flat keys and everything. So you have to have a whole array to be able to sit in with somebody.
Okay, I've got that now. I mean, duh. He's sitting at the end good, Dave, come on.
It's all good, bro.
Well, it's just knowledge, isn't it? I mean,
It is.
no disrespect to you. I'm not a harmonica guy. Yeah. Since I've heard you, I've listened to more and more and more.
Yep.
And that's the truth. Since I heard you play.
There are 12 keys, and there are 12,
12 keys,
diatonic harmonicas that work with all those keys.
Okay.
Yeah. And they all have their different nuance and personality, So one key, like a B flat, will sound completely different than a C harp, and so you kind of get a preference for a certain tone.
Did you bring one with you?
I don't think I did. I never.
I was edging there towards a bit of a tune.
I would have played, but well, he's got that version of Juke or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, I normally keep one with me all the time because you never know when it's going to come in handy.
Like now. So we've got to say, after the last show, we got a lot of feedback. Okay.
From who?
Right. So let me. We had emails and different things. So we had it from the Reddit guys. I don't know if you know Reddit, which is a news source, yeah. Which they picked up on the video and picked up on you and sent me some compliments saying thank you very much. It was a great show. Loved it. Blah blah blah. So I'm just relaying this to you.
That's nice.
Okay. Metro, which is a news site again, picked up on that you were in the studio. And they ran with an article, or they're going to run with an article. Scandinavian Music, which does Sweden, Norwegian, and Denmark. They was actually one of the people who was in the studio over the weekend here on Friday. They were in the studio, and he runs all the scan press. I've been in contact with him, and he's going to run a story for us, which is pretty cool. Yeah. The one thing I want to ask you, I don't know if you know this, I asked Bobby, and he sort of looked at me and glared at me and went, I'm not too sure. Do you know the Wolf Gangs? Have you heard of them?
The Wolf Brothers.
Is this the Wolf Brothers?
The
Grateful Dead?
Bob Weir's band?
Oh yeah.
Okay, well they sent
Wolf Brothers.
Oh, they sent in a compliment.
They did?
Yeah, saying
Really?
that the show was good. Yeah,
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's where I've got this from.
Is that the one with Jay Lane on who?
Yeah, those are your friends.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, but I looked.
Hey, you guys. Thanks for tuning in.
I looked at the site and the sounds, the tracks, and blah 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 is there. So yeah. I mean, there was a couple of good things.
Nice.
And it's just nice to get a bit of feedback. I mean,
really makes me feel good.
Yeah, well, this podcast is new. We're trying to do something that has never been done in Patio. Mm-hmm. It's never been done down this area, and getting guests onto the show and trying to get some information so far, and it's doing really well. But what we want to do, Matthew, is an idea that I've got, and that is on your next visit is probably if we can get a couple of people in with you and probably do a couple of live sessions. Would be pretty cool.
You mean playing?
Yeah,
that would be fantastic.
Yes.
That's
my idea. The idea is, that's some of the things that I've been, I try and go through the emails that I get personally and on my Facebook and things like that, and I like to listen to feedback. Even when somebody says, you're no good, even when somebody says you're not good at what you're doing, and I go, okay, why?
Yeah.
And then I can change that, yeah? So One of the things I got back on some of the messages that, we love listening to Matthew. We love listening to the stories about the Grateful Dead. And in fact, I got it.
Well, I haven't even started talking about the Grateful Dead.
No, we haven't. We haven't. But we're gonna go there in later shows. But
Yeah.
we, like the Bobby and the Midnights, the Grateful Dead, Kingfisher, Rat Dog, where Bobby came into it, and that was sort of a release to say, I need to play music and all that with yourself. These are all the things that I get the feedback on about yourself, yeah? But the one big thing that people keep saying to me is, when is he going to play something?
Oh.
So there we go.
Be happy to do it.
So I've been asked for that. I mean, so hopefully on another show.
You got to get Snowman and you guys. You and Snowman. And
Yeah, because because we have a similar blues background. He's played with a lot of the guys I played with B.B. King and on the same bill. And so, but one other thing, if I can say something that's not music related, I'd like to, at some point when the time is right, talk about some of the life issues, and that not necessarily music related, but I think that would be of great interest because there's so much that people don't know, because most people, they know about, me in my music environment, but, for the last 20 years, I've taken a different road to life, so to speak, and it's pretty interesting. And so I'd like to just touch on that a little bit. But but what we're doing now today is great because I really wanted to talk about the Chitlin Circuit, like we've been.
The Chitlins. I mean, I didn't know until you said that it was about the food, Bobby. I mean, I didn't realize it was. I just thought,
I actually didn't either. I just learned that recently.
Yeah,
I heard that term used years and years, and finally, do you guys know what the Chitlin Circuit means? And I went, no, and someone explained it to me, and I was like, oh wow, that makes sense.
So was this like a few bands on this circuit, or so? Is that why it was called that, or yeah?
Well, it's just a term that they use for that scene. All the black. There's a great movie that called Green Book. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
I highly recommend that to anybody that's interested in this kind of thing. It's I won't tell the plot, but it's about a black musician that goes out to the South just to see what it's like, and what his adventures.
And what about
true story.
We can go into what I want to do probably in the next episode, if that's okay with you, is to talk about life experiences and talk about different things that happen in your life, not anything to do with the music side of it. Yeah, we can do like half the show on just talking about your life experiences and what changed you and what made you go the way that you did and all these kind of things, which is nice to hear because if you ever look at the artist and you look at the person, it's always completely different. Yes. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, because music is only one part of my life. There's all this other stuff. I don't really want to talk too much about politics. That's not my forte.
Not my forte.
But I can talk about other matters,
All right, so we're going to get that in part 3. Is that okay with you?
Sounds great.
Is that all right with you, Bobby?
It's all right with me.
Okay, it's been good to have you in the studio today again. Yeah, I think we've done a nice one. Yeah,
we've done a nice one.
Been cool. We're absolutely brilliant. Brought us up to date, but it's going to be interesting because I know that Mr. Controller at the end always gives me some bullet points on where we need to go with you, Matthew, because your world is brilliant, and I do like that magical mystery tour. I like that side of it. Yeah. That's pretty cool, yeah.
Yes,
I like the way Matthew started out this podcast by addressing the fires in California. And why don't we close with that because that's a heavy thing that's going on right now, and they need all the blessings and rain they can get.
Well, I think out of this, we should just we should just give like at least 30 seconds silence. Is that okay?
That's good.
And have
that's a great idea.
And have a think about these guys over in California. Is that okay with you guys?
That sounds really
So I'll count you down, and we'll give them 30 seconds of silence if that's okay. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Counting 3, 2, 1.
Talking Heads podcast live from Pattaya, Thailand with your host, Dave D.
There you go. It's been a good one today. Matthew Kelly in the studio. There we go. Paying our respects to the guys over there in California and send them all our wishes, and hopefully they will stay safe. Yes?
Yeah, that's great.
Good. We've been safe today. We've had a good show once again.
Thank you, David.
We go.
David, you rock. You're a great interviewer, man.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Thank you, Matthew.
We'll always have our lovers and our haters, won't we, Matthew?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's what makes the merry go round. Yeah?
That's right.
All right, from us here in Pattaya, thanks for joining us today. It's great. Matthew Kelly course part 2, but next time, get ready for it. It's the live omnibus coming your way very, very soon.
Talking Heads podcast live from Pattaya, Thailand with your host, Dave D. Join us weekdays. Check out all the latest updates on talkingheads-podcast.com.